Hey there, welcome to episode 80 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo, Managing Director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, a Nevada nonprofit, 501c3 public charity, enabling and encouraging ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. Recording this in the evening of August 26th. Gotta update my notes. Normally I record in the morning of the day of publication. I'm going to try to record during the evening prior. Less rushing. Today's episode, we're going to talk about puzzles versus mysteries. Puzzles versus mysteries. What does that even mean? Well, stay tuned. You've come to the right place. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you will find the episode description and within the show notes and a few links that are relevant to today's episode. The show notes, I will read to you the summary. Then we'll skip through the links. The first 4 are from last week. The first 3 are the usual. And then I'm touching on Agile for Volunteers, which is still a work in progress, but coming along. Puzzles versus mysteries. To the summary. You may know the difference between complication and complexity. But do you know the difference between a puzzle and a mystery? Do you know how these apply to civic volunteer projects? Well, let's find out. The link section, which you should also see in the episode description, includes a link to our homepage, innovateforvegas.org, F-O-R, spelled out, no spaces, dashes, hyphens, dots, other than the one, innovateforvegas.org. It's pretty basic right now. As I've mentioned over the past several weeks, too many weeks, it is high on the internal list, but low on the external list of things to do. We don't really have much to deploy to our website just yet, but there are a few things that are coming together. One of them being Agile for Volunteers to help with our civic volunteer projects and valuing volunteer time. That was last week's episode of this very program. And as well, Project ACT, which I'll get to in a moment. Our GitHub organization, github.com/innovateforvegas. Once again, F-O-R, Innovate for Vegas. We will make the site a little bit easier to navigate. That is also on the list. Got a big list. Too big. But you can at least check it out. Similarly, we have our Project ACT organization on GitHub, github.com/project. In this case, there is a dash or hyphen. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I've said this a couple times now. I don't know if it's a dash or a hyphen. On most keyboards, it's going to be to the right of the 0 key on the top of your keyboard. So I don't know if that's, if you hold that down, you will get on mobile devices, you'll probably get an optional key set that you can select a hyphen, a dash, an N dash or an M dash. So you can go with the short one. Project-ACT, that's the Autonomous Cohort Tessellation or Autonomous Cohort Transformation. We're going to do both. Helping other organizations form nonprofits or organize their cohorts, or even individuals who want to contribute to the civic volunteer projects. Help them with getting discovered and connect, communicate, collaborate. The 3 C's of civic volunteerism. And then the fourth link, and again, these were all from last week as well, our Agile for Volunteers documentation. So that is a component project repository on our Innovate for Vegas GitHub account. Doc dash or hyphen. I will endeavor to figure out which key that specifically is. doc-agile-for-volunteers. You can check that out if you like. Now the 3 relevant links for today's episode. Gladwell, Puzzles and Mysteries. It's a Boing Boing article. If you're familiar with Cory Doctorow, whom I've quoted a few times in previous episodes and across my media programs, boingboing.net. Cory was either a co-founder or major contributor. Zini Jardin and Cory Doctorow, the 2 big players back in the day. So boingboing.net, 2007, they did an article on Gladwell, Malcolm Gladwell, and I think the book was Blink or the one after that. He was looking at Enron, but he touches on, so that within this article on Boing Boing, there are a few interesting links. But that was where I first heard someone describe using these terms, the difference between puzzles and mysteries. If you think about it, it does make sense, but I didn't really associate it with puzzles and mysteries. So that made sense, actually. I don't know if Malcolm Gladwell coined the terms or use thereof in this way, but an exercise left to the listener. I have a link to the Agile Manifesto, which is also linked in our Agile for Volunteers documentation. Agile for Volunteers is essentially a back to basics Agile implementation of principles and methods. So rather than teasing something out of the Agile industrial complex, we've just gone back to its roots. 2001, February, when Agile Manifesto was published. It's very, very simple. Principles, not rules. It's not about grading people. It's about estimating so people can get the most out of their time. We'll touch on that more. And finally, a link to the Jeff Jonas bio on his website. Jeff Jonas, if you saw the movie 21, or if you heard about those crazy kids from MIT coming to Vegas and counting cards on teams, somebody named Jeff Jonas was hired to try to figure out who they were, and he did. He's a data scientist, entrepreneur, very communicative. He used to live in Las Vegas. I went to a presentation. He was on stage with a kind of like the Y92 format or similar, where he's on stage and he's kind of being prompted by another person on stage. And then there was audience questions and so on. He had a cool story. I'm drinking some tea, by the way, for obvious reasons. He had a cool story about puzzles, which we'll get to. He also mentions puzzles with a similar use of the term somewhere on his blog, or I think in his Medium articles. I know he's got a entity resolution startup called Senzing, Senzing. You can find that linked from his website. Seems like a nice guy. I didn't have too much interaction. He moved to LA, probably within a year of my moving here and him leaving, somewhere there. So I interacted with him in person once, one good time, and then I had various emails back and forth after. Like I said, but he's very communicative, interesting person. But the puzzle story is interesting, which I will get to. So first, complicated versus complex, as I mentioned in the summary. When something is complicated, it has some solution that is apparent, though it may take many, many steps and a certain amount of understanding to navigate the path, but it is navigable. So something that's complicated can be solved. It might take extra work if you don't have experience. Fun fact, when you have especially a mechanical watch, like a pocket watch or a wristwatch, and has lots of features, stopwatch, calendar, alarms, altimeter, whatever, you name it. Really, really, really expensive mechanical, I think pocket watches, just because they have more space. All those features are called complications. So a complication on a watch, you could literally take the watch apart. Probably don't want to do that, but you could take the watch apart and you can see how it works, or how it used to work. But you can understand through dissection, disassembly, how the thing works. It's not, nothing is hiding other than perhaps precision assembly and so on. But it's essentially there for you to see, and you will find complication in anything that's intricate or complicated. One example might be an internal combustion engine. If you were to build one from parts, if somebody shipped you all of the parts that make up an internal combustion engine, a traditional, here are some piston rings, here are some connecting rods, here are some valves, here are some springs, here are some rocker arms, distributor, the list goes on. Or, well, probably electronic ignition this time nowadays. But building a internal combustion engine is very complicated, but if you follow the steps, you can do it. So it is complicated, but it is doable. It has an outcome that you could envision. There's a path to get there, and you could navigate it. There may be some checking on the internet. What is a torque wrench? But it can be done. Maybe a Lego Millennium Falcon set, also probably more complicated, probably more pieces, but you can see the picture on the box. That's what we're going to be building, and you can flip through the instructions. I have to imagine some thick instructions. Or maybe it's a household financial budget for a normal household, or even if you're fairly rich, you can pretty much measure incomes, inflows and outflows, costs, expenses, accumulation, savings, investments. Yeah, these are all sort of standard accounting. Well, T there. Well, when something is complex, though, there may not be an apparent path to a solution or understanding. If there is one, it may be profoundly difficult to find, or there may be theories, inklings, but nothing quite definite. Things like gravity, how gravity works, black holes and event horizons. There are theories. There's a good picture. It was thought that you couldn't even take an image of a black hole because no light escapes, but they managed to get some imagery of a black hole in the recent years. And how about the financial budget of a country? You're talking galactic numbers that are beyond the understanding of mere mortals. A country that has sovereign currency sovereignty, is that what it is? If you can print your own money, then things only get even more complicated. And you can look at money supplies, and you can look at budgets of different components of the government and where money is coming in through taxes and other things. And it starts to get really amazing when you're like, what? Why is there like $7 trillion missing right here? And the Pentagon's like, not sure. So complex because there may not actually be a solution. It comes down to probably difficult to probably impossible. So probably difficult, complicated. Probably impossible, complex. Probably difficult doesn't have to be difficult. It might be pretty easy if you've built a Millennium Falcon or internal combustion engine before, or maybe difficult if you've not. Probably impossible. You get the idea. So we hope to be able to make projects that we work on complicated, perhaps less complicated, without making them complex, so that people who might want to join or contribute to a project take one look and say, that doesn't make any sense. What is this, a black hole? Some projects are. So initiatives and projects should not be mysteries. What is a mystery? A mystery may not converge on a solution given the information available. Mysteries may include diverging paths and dead ends, incorrect conclusions that must be backtracked and tossed out. And some of the information available may be misinformation or even disinformation. Think about any traditional mystery that you may have come across. True crime stories, books, your Sherlock Holmes, often modern episodic television, Magnum PI, Reacher. These are sorts of shows where there's some mystery. The mystery could be held in one episode of the show, or it could be a story arc across the entire season. That's common with Reacher, for example. But here, there is a mystery, and along the way, some of the drama is that someone's trying to hide something from our heroes, and so they mislead them, or maybe there's just an indication that turns out to be a false lead, like, oh, that's not really relevant, but we thought it was, etc., etc. So a mystery may have tons and tons of data. You could call it information, perhaps, but not all of it is relevant, and some of it is specifically not relevant or designed to confuse or distract. In that case, your mystery, if you're on the wrong path, you may be spending a ton of time and effort and resources, and you're following up leads that are not going to go anywhere. This can happen with projects when you're not sure what you're working on, when other people told you what to work on, and then you kind of wonder to yourself, like, wait a minute, why are we working on this part of it? And this will happen in a workplace many times. It doesn't have to be software. Somewhere where you are hands-on and you are aware of how something is functioning or dysfunctioning, but someone with authority to tell you says, oh, do this instead, or we're going to do that. We're going to go in that direction. So the mystery may never be solved if you find yourself saying, wait a minute, what? Mysteries require analysis and patience and probably time. That's why getting paid to deal with mysteries is probably a better deal. more time than one might estimate or plan for or may have available. Mysteries also require a certain amount of attention, so that if someone leaves the mystery, someone else joins the mystery to try to solve it, the journey may begin anew. If someone says, "Oh, I can't work on this mystery anymore. I can't try to solve the case. Can't try to bring in the perp," so someone else comes on. You could look at 7 as one example. You can't just go retire in the middle of a case or when it's just beginning. There has to be some information exchange and shared, or if the case started before the new person entered the picture, you got to do a handoff. So mysteries require a certain amount of attention, and that attention can disappear when the person giving that attention to the mystery can't do that anymore. And this is something that happens in civic volunteer projects. So it may be possible to hand off a mystery to others with judicious information capture and communication forward. So the person that's leaving, if they're able, will hopefully have a picture drawn, notes, or some sort of a state of affairs that they can communicate forward to the next person who's coming into the effort, try to solve that mystery. It's not always an easy ask, especially if someone volunteering their time decides, "I got to go today. I can't be here anymore." That happens. Initiatives will ideally be puzzles. The best, if not actually ideal example perhaps, is a jigsaw puzzle. The goal of the jigsaw puzzle is the picture on the box. The entire endeavor is visible from start to finish. That's what we're making. Each piece correctly placed advances the effort towards the final goal. And at any given time, someone who joins or leaves can assess the state and join rather seamlessly. They can join in as simple as, "Hey, this piece looks like it goes there." Oh, you are in. We can't get there entirely with our efforts. The goal of Agile for Volunteers is to make initiatives and component projects behave like jigsaw puzzles or puzzles in general. The piece of a puzzle should be apparent, the goal should be apparent, and progress toward the goal by placing each of the pieces should be apparent. So the difference between a puzzle and a mystery, a puzzle converges on a solution. The solution's on the box. Every time you place a piece, you might place it in the wrong place. You may say, "Ooh, this piece fits here," and then on closer inspection, no, it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't fit visually. Maybe the piece isn't quite good, a good fit. Like, "Oh, I didn't notice that little corner sticking out." So you can be self-correcting, right? Like either you or someone else might say, "Oh, that doesn't go there." The puzzle, the jigsaw puzzle, is visible at any given time. You can see, "Oh, that's where it is. We're 80% done." It's also observable. You can see as people are adding pieces, you can see when somebody makes a mistake. So if you are participating, if you're there to see it, you can observe the progress being made. So a jigsaw puzzle or puzzle in general converges on a solution as you do work, as you fill in pieces into the puzzle, you are approaching done. A mystery, as you accept pieces of evidence or pieces of the puzzle, pieces of the mystery, as you add them to your corkboard with photos and other documents connected with red threads and index cards with names and so on. You've seen the movies. You might be going in exactly the wrong direction. Every time you add something to your evidence poster, you may be moving farther and farther away from a solution. So mysteries may not converge. Puzzles, with rare exception, converge. You will eventually solve the puzzle. You may never solve a mystery. So one of the most important parts of this analogy is the ability for civic volunteers to participate in irregular intervals, joining, leaving, returning, without leaving mysteries for others. So by making effort contributed, time, effort, expertise. So when those are contributed and pieces of the puzzle are placed, those should be visible. Pieces that were not yet placed should be visible. People that are collaborating with you should be able to observe what's happening and maybe share that information with someone joining. Maybe if you rejoin later, you'll say, "Oh, what happened since I was gone?" Because you weren't there to observe it, but hopefully the project is visible and people who we're able to observe progress, can fill you in. Hey, this is what happened, and we changed some direction here. That should not be secret information. You should be able to refer to a new plan, a new addition to some plan of a component project or a feature, or whatever the case may be. Say, oh yes, okay, yes, there it is. I see. We're adding another language. We're going to add Tagalog, the third most popular language spoken in Southern Nevada. Anyway, I think Nevada. So yeah, puzzles should be just like a jigsaw puzzle. You should be able to get up, maybe use the restroom, go get a drink of water or whatever, go watch the game for a while, come back to the puzzle. If other people are working on it, you can see, oh, yes, progress was made in my absence. Can I rejoin? By all means, have a seat. So puzzles are more fun. You spend less time being frustrated if you join at some point in the solving of the puzzle. So what about a mysterious puzzle? Well, I told you Jeff Jonas told us a story in an on-stage presentation to the audience. He was in person, so those are the best kinds of stories, here in Vegas a few years ago. It may be written down somewhere. I couldn't find it in his blogs. I know he had more blogs. I think it was on TypePad. So it may be rendered in written form somewhere. But it goes something like this. Now, this was a few years ago. I'm going from memory. He visited the home of a friend for a gathering of many friends there at the house. He brought either one or two jigsaw puzzles. It may have been two. I think two makes it... having two puzzles fits into the little prank he pulled on his colleagues, friends, former friends. They were in boxes, so the goal's right there in the front of the boxes. We're going to make either this one or that one. So they had a big table, spread out the pieces. You can put the box near the pile of pieces over here. You can put the box in the pile of pieces over there. Anybody who wants to sit down or even stand up, hey, I can put a couple pieces together. Let's do the edges first, etc. The thing he had not told the guests was that the puzzles were adulterated. Each box did not contain pieces from only its indicated puzzles. So if it was two puzzle boxes, and I think it was, it contained pieces from another puzzle in each box, as well as the pictured puzzle pieces. Say that 3 times fast. So a total of 4 puzzles across 2 boxes. Each box had pieces from the puzzle goal, picture on the front, and pieces from a different puzzle. Now, I reserve the right to have it told this story slightly incorrectly, but I think I'm pretty close. So, since puzzles, especially jigsaw puzzles, are visible and observable, you could be sitting there trying to put pieces together, or you can just be wandering by and see, oh, no, looks like you guys are making progress. They have clear goals, and it turns out that the mixed collections become apparent pretty quickly. So as you're assembling, first think about how you attack a jigsaw puzzle. Usually people will build the outer edge. You find the flat pieces, put them together. So I don't know if Jeff was careful about how he adulterated the individual puzzles. He may have had it so you can construct the outer frame of the jigsaw image, but that's usually where people begin. So if there are pieces that don't fit right away, you would find yourself saying, this is wrong. But if you are boss level prankster, you have all the edges for the puzzle picture on the box. They're all there. Build the full outer frame, flat edges. And then as people progress through the middle, they start building up little islands. Oh, this looks like it goes there. At some point, they'll say, wait a minute. Does this fit over here, over there? There are ways to make this extremely difficult. If you find 2 very similar images, it could be done. So they're visible and observable. So people actually working on it would be able to see as they're progressing along. They reach a point at some time in the process where they say, wait a minute, these pieces are not fitting. They're not visually compatible. They're not fitting the available spaces. Communicating the differences, that something funny was going on here, was also pretty straightforward. Once the discovery was made, it only had to be found once. And then you communicate it to everyone else. So as someone decides, this is broken, this puzzle's broken, hey, everybody, these puzzles are broken, you've now shared that communication with everyone. There will be no more surprises. It's not really a mystery anymore. Oh, this puzzle will not converge because the pieces are not from just one of the two. So it was a fun story the way he told it. And he said he was observing people's behavior as they would reach the point where they're like, something's not right here. And those are good times to communicate with other people. Hey, does this look right to you? This is where pair programming comes in handy. This is where we're working on small teams where you can actually have that conversation on the fly. Like, hey, has anyone else noticed that this is not working the way it's supposed to? You get some confirmation. You get some other viewpoints, other levels of experience, other insights and inputs. So the machinery we're building for Agile for Volunteers, the idea is to make initiatives. Initiatives are collections of component projects, the user interface, the icons, the text, the documentation, the text that you might see, the content, the documentation, the program logic, the database, the mechanical devices, if any, anything that makes up a total overall initiative. So we use the term initiative, which is a term used in Agile sometimes. So initiative contains one or more component projects. Component projects could be hardware, software, infrastructure as code, database, documentation, front end, back end, user interface, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These should be more like puzzles with a workflow and communication scheme that makes the most of time spent on the component projects of the initiative, rather than trying to resolve mysteries. If you're volunteering your time and you spend a lot of that time saying, why am I working on this if it cannot be solved? Why am I going down this path if it's not going to go anywhere? I have now wasted my volunteer time. Could have spent it on something else. So we want to minimize that. Spend more time contributing to a component project, overall initiative, not trying to contribute to a component project or overall initiative. The trying to contribute represents frustration, disappointment, apathy, disillusionment. Try working in the technology industry, you'll know exactly what I mean. The plans and tasks as issues, in GitHub in our case, should behave like those puzzle pieces so that they are visible, interconnections are visible, discoveries along the way should be visible so that we know, hey, this didn't fit together with that. Hey, this progress was made because this puzzle piece, the plan, the user story, and this puzzle piece, the implementation in a component project, like, oh, I built the web page, or oh, I built the business logic. I created the database, right? You can start checking off things at any given time. You should be able to say, oh, okay, these things are done. Here's how they fit together. Here's what we're building. Here's why. If we can see the puzzle pieces falling into place, then volunteers should be able to join and leave and rejoin and so on to make the most of the volunteer time, theirs and that of others. That's something that is not often recognized. You mean other people are volunteering also? My not being here might impact them. Let me edit my notes here real quick. Sorry. I want to do it now while I'm looking at it. I made a duplicate word, and then I missed an S. So their volunteer time and the time of others. So whenever you're working with other people on volunteer projects, they're volunteering their time, you're volunteering your time. If you decide to leave and you're working on something that they need when you're finished, they're going to be able to finish what they're working on. Suddenly, you've put their time contributed, maybe at risk, but you've certainly thrown it off a little bit, right? So you might have to leave. You might have other pressing matters. Volunteer time is difficult to guarantee, right? Life might find a way, but it also gets in the way sometimes. So this is a fact of life. It must be accounted for, but trying to not lead others to feeling as though they wasted their time is one of the goals. That will take some iterations to make sure we can get that in a state that people believe that, if I do this extra effort of writing down when I've worked on something, when I've finished, what I'm going to do, we're going to try to come up with something better than story points that are more connected to the task flow, not the story flow. So we'll see. Room for experiment. Agile is a set of principles, not rules. And we're not grading people. We're literally trying to make the most of the time, effort, and expertise that people contribute to projects. There's no penalties for not hitting your marks. Oh, you said you were going to do 14 story points and you only did 12. Time for you to go. No, none of that. So we have to be, we do need to be judicious in our communications of good information about progress. And we need also to be aware that any particular component project may not be software. Sometimes you're working with someone on HTML for the front end with some color schemes that hopefully are accessible to people with vision impairments. Maybe we're working on a localization element, so we have source material in English perhaps, and we want to make sure we publish in, so we internationalize it and then we localize it to Spanish, Tagalog, German, Polish. You would not believe how many languages people speak when they visit Vegas. A lot, more than 2. And 2 is what most people do because it's census data says 2. English and Spanish are the top 2 languages spoken certainly in the Vegas area, Greater Vegas. So if we can see those puzzle pieces falling into place, they should be able to join, rejoin, leave, join again, etc. Make the most of that time. If we're judicious with our communication, good information about progress, we need to be aware that any particular component project may not be software. Okay, so I'm just catching up there. I know I said all that already. It could be just about anything, and that's where being communicative about what things are moving, what things are not moving. We got to delay this. Somebody had to leave the project for a while. They'll come back in a couple of months or a couple of weeks. The person who's not used to the topsy-turvy world of software development might say, what about the HTML, the front end, the pages, the web pages I'm building? Or what about I'm translating all this English into Spanish or Tagalog or Polish or whatever. All of the above. So people working on different parts that will all fit together like a jigsaw puzzle, they may be working on those islands. Like, I have the lower right-hand corner of the jigsaw puzzle working, but if you haven't done the middle part, then I can't plug in my part. Oh, wait, I can plug it into the edge pieces. Oh, I can make that work. And then when you come back later, you can fit your pieces into my pieces. So if there's communication and there's visibility into what projects are where in their timelines, if there's a general awareness of the initiative and its component projects and how they all work, how far along they are, who's making progress on what, who's working on what, who was working on what, then hopefully it will be possible to value the time people put into this, time, effort, expertise, and make sure that they understand the value that their time, effort, and expertise are not only valued, but valuable. So the challenge, describing this process, which is a variation on Agile, like I said, which is designed to make the most of developer time and effort to turn out high quality software. So Agile, as written, as designed, as conceived and published, was by and for software developers. You may not be working on software. If you're working on a civic volunteer project, that doesn't mean you are left out in the cold. You should be a part of the whole team. So whole team is an important part of the Agile for Volunteers version of Agile, which is aimed at making the most of volunteer time, effort, and expertise to turn out high-quality initiatives. Some are software, but not all are. So if you read the original Agile Manifesto, which was in the show note links, you will see a few mentions of software. Not a lot. You can make the Agile Manifesto fairly agnostic when it comes to, are we building software? Are we building hardware? Are we baking cakes, cookies? Are we, creating logos? What are we doing? Maybe it's not software, but some of the same principles can apply, and that's where we're doing that here. So we want to turn out high quality initiatives, and again, to make the contributions of volunteers not only valued, but valuable. So your volunteer time, effort, and expertise should be celebrated, perhaps, certainly recognized, should be valued. Anybody can be valued for taking the time, putting in their time, effort, and expertise. But hopefully, for your own satisfaction, it's nice to be appreciated, but to know that your time, effort, and expertise, why do I keep saying those? Because they're all important, to know that they were valuable, that even though we really appreciate what you did, but we're not going to use any of your work, right? So you want to avoid that as well. So valuable contributions to the project. Value your contribution, and your contribution should be valuable throughout their life cycle, throughout the timeline. I know that sounds like I'm just repeating the same words, but again, hey, thanks for all the help the time you spent. We're not going to use anything. We're valuing your contributions, but your contributions were not valuable. But we don't want to do that. The ask to civic volunteers is to spend some small amount of time, on a canonical workflow with a built-in communication of progress, the issue forms and whatnot. Why are you using issues for planning? Because in GitHub world, and by the way, Atlassian, makers of something all software people will know all too well, Jira is used extensively for Agile, Scrum, Safe project planning. So it's not a new idea. The fact that you can assign a planning element, part of an overall plan, an initiative plan with themes, which are different like facets to an initiative. The example I usually give is if you're building an office suite, like Microsoft Office or Google Workspace or whatever. One theme might be a spreadsheet, one theme might be a word processor, one theme might be an email client. And then on themes, you have epics, features, user stories. You can figure out what it is you're trying to build, who's going to be using what you're building, why they might need a certain feature, a version of a feature in a particular way, or a particular expectation. So once you have this workflow in place, you spend some time then implementing the actual plan in component project tasks. So the puzzle pieces should be visible at all times. Okay, here's what we're building. Here's the plan. And I'm going to be building some component using Figma. You're going to be building something using JavaScript. Somebody else will be translating using some translation tools for localization. So their stuff is over there. So at any given time, you should be able to get a pretty good idea of where things are, who's doing what, how different things are being done. I can see the plan. Now I can see the different tasks. Hey, you're doing something in JavaScript, but what if we want to do it in Rust or Lisp or Forth? Do we throw away all that work? No, we can just take the work that's being done, learn from it, and then perhaps try a different version written in a different language. There's always a way to take what's been learned and reapply it. We want to do that too. Puzzle pieces should be visible. The initiative should be observable as people are making progress. We're going to use 2-week iterations as the default. Atomic teams, persistent teams. The goal should be established by the whole team as part of that plan. And the plan, just like in Agile, is subject to change as things are learned. Details are observed along the way. Hey, it would be better if we used C# instead of JavaScript. Okay, we learned something. Let's feed that back into the plan and then maybe come up with a component project in C# as needed, etc. The picture on the box is what we make of it. So we get to describe that picture, not be told what it is. And it is subject to adjustment along the way, like I said. So to make a good and desirable outcome, not dictated outcomes. There's no management above you on an org chart. Everybody's a volunteer. We all want to work on cool stuff so that it solves a problem, it elevates a community, something cool, looks good on everybody's resume. So you're not being told what to do, you're being told, maybe, you're being suggested what needs to be done. Like, hey, we really need better tools for figuring out where buses are. We need better tools for sharing information. We need better tools for identifying messages and identities for private online survey taking. I don't want to share my email address when I'm answering questions about medical, healthcare, access to healthcare services. I want to prove that I'm in Vegas, but I don't want to share my personally identifying information. So how do we keep track that this is a person? It's the same person, but it's not a person known, right? So it's a unique person. These are all things that okay, we need to solve that. I was talking about the vLocal project, by the way. We need to solve this. We're not being told how to solve it. We're told we know what we need to solve. And sometimes there'll be a question about, well, you should know what you're building ahead of time. Sometimes. Here we can make a difference between specifications and plans. Occasionally there will be a specification that's built in, like, oh, we're using HTML. Do we have to reinvent it? No, we don't. It's HTML. There's a specification for it. We're going to use that. So not everything is a mystery subject to team creativity. So it does work, I promise. Ideally, the visibility and observability and usability. Visibility and observability will be inviting to external volunteers who may be interested in adding their own contributions to a given initiative or a component project, or perhaps collaborate across a project here and a project they might have over there. For example, we may have an open transit project and someone else in some other part of the country or world may be working on a similar idea, and they may discover our open transit initiative and say, oh, these parts look like they would fit what we're doing, and we're doing something that might fit what you're doing. Hey, we can work together. We can collaborate. So making, just like that jigsaw puzzle, making the initiative, component projects, progress, how things are fitting together, who's working on what, progress being made, things are working, making that visible and observable over time can help with that collaboration. It's a bit of optimism sprinkled on top of all this, but sometimes there's only sometimes there's only one way to find out if an idea will work. You got to try it and see what happens. That is puzzle versus mystery. Mysteries can be fun. They can be frustrating. Sometimes they're better left to novels, movies, graphic novels perhaps. Solving mysteries is sometimes fun and entertaining. Sometimes you need to use some lateral thinking. Sometimes you need some lateral thinking to solve a puzzle too. But you can judge very quickly if your lateral thinking is getting you anywhere, because puzzles, again, converge. A mystery may not. So we really want to make civic volunteer time valued and valuable so that people are excited to make progress. They're excited to contribute their time and to know that others contributing their time will appreciate their time and vice versa, so that we can eventually say, hey, look, we made that and we solved this. Everybody wins. And that is Agile for Volunteers, trying to make puzzles so we can solve them. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Today's show is today's episode is a little bit shorter than normal, which is good for everyone. Recording at night, different set of parameters for my voice and my allergies. The weather has turned cool, so I will expect maybe in the next week or two, maybe some difference in the way I can speak. It's very annoying for me. I can probably try to do voice exercises, but I'm going to try to do shows at night for a couple weeks and see what happens. So I'll record in the evening and publish the next day. In the meantime, don't forget to check out any of the links in the episode description, the show notes, innovateforvegas.org. Don't forget, we are a Nevada nonprofit corporation, a 501c3 public charity. Our purpose is to, I was almost going to say energize, enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. It's just generic enough so that we're not saying we're going to be a software project. Anybody can do anything. I can stop right there. Anybody can do anything to contribute to initiatives and component projects that will hopefully elevate communities via ideation, coming up with creative ideas, innovation, sometimes coming up with new ideas, and implementation, turning those ideas into implementation, turning them into software, hardware, visualization, audio, video, etc. So there's an extremely cynical expression. Ideas are worth nothing. It's all about implementation. So we can have cool ideas, we can come up with new innovative ideas, but we got to implement them. And that's where we hope to make the most of volunteer time. And that is where I'll leave it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.